It's Tuesday. You know what day it is? It's Tuesday. And of course, I messed that intro up. Anyway, it's Comic Book School. It is on a Tuesday, and we have our good friend Hugh Sterbakov back with us to discuss all things writing. And let's just jump right in and bring him back on. There he is. Hey,
Hi, Mike.
Hugh. How you doing?
I'm good. I keep forgetting what day today is, though. What day is it?
It's Tuesday.
Oh, all right. Good. Now I won't forget. If I do forget, you can remind me.
Yeah, I always that intro for some reason always screws me and Buddy up. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, it's pretty tough. It's
Yeah.
one of 7 days of the week.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
always the same one week after week. But listen, we all have our obstacles in life, and
Yeah, we can't all be
let,
perfect. Can't
let
all
it be
be
done.
perfect. So, Hugh, we got you back on because you are a writer
I am.
and you are prolific. And I wish I had my graphics up because I would pull up your the page that I made.
I used to be prolific, not as much anymore, but I certainly was.
Yeah. Well, I am woefully unprepared.
I had a
Um.
whole career out
Anyway.
of writing things nobody ever heard of or
Yeah.
got paid.
So give us a rundown of Hugh.
A rundown of Hugh. Well,
Yeah, like all your stuff you've done and all your writing stuff.
okay. I knew I wanted to write from when I was a little kid. From the very beginning, I knew I wanted to write movies. Right when I got out of Superman and Star Wars in the theater, I went to Ithaca College in upstate New York for my undergrad. Came out to LA, got into the UCLA master's program. Wrote there. Right out of there, the last script I wrote in there, I sold to Disney, and then I've kind of been working on and off ever since. I've worked for every major studio. I've sold so many TV shows and movies, and been hired to write them, and they just never get made. Just a few years ago, I did a pilot for the CW that finally did get made, but didn't go to series. And I've, it was bizarre. And, I earned a living and I had a whole career and I met everybody and worked with everybody and just don't have anything on my IMDb. It's bizarre. Wrote a comic book that I co-created with Seth Green. I wrote a novel. I've written for countless magazines, mostly back in the day when there were magazines. Wrote for Robot Chicken, nominated for a couple of Emmys, won an Annie. Wrote an animated movie called Hell and Back, which exists, sort of. I think I co-hosted the Activision podcast for 5 years.
Oh, very nice. Didn't know about that.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was a lot of fun, except that because we were in the community, I kept getting called in to do, community gaming nights where I was playing Call of Duty against not only just anybody who could beat me, but like the fans that were enthusiastic enough to listen to the Activision podcast. And they don't know each other. They know me because I'm the co-host, and they just want to kill me. So it was 2 hours of getting smoked as soon as I spawned every week for 5 years. But it was fun, whatever. It would have been nice if they paid me, if they didn't pay me. But,
They didn't pay you at all?
No, because I was the co-host. I was really doing it as a favor to my friend who was the host. But I got all the free games. They gave me all the games. Whatever. Like, what else did I have to do, Mike? I'm a writer. I'm a screenwriter working from home. And then to bring it full circle, now I'm teaching at UCLA because I really wanted to get out of the entertainment industry. And my wife is a producer, and we partnered with some people, and we funded a company around an IP I created. We are doing an animated series. I just wrote the final episode. It's slow, but it's in production. It's animated, so it takes forever to make these things. I mean, you guys on Robot Chicken were actually on a fast schedule compared to most animation.
Yeah.
But it's in the works. It's happening. It's getting made, which is a great experience for me, a rare experience, and I'm really proud of it. I really like it. I don't know how people are going to react. It's like it's kind of got a Game of Thrones setting with my kind of like bantery dialogue, but then an infusion of science fiction. Like, what if a UFO landed in the middle of the Game of Thrones world? Instead of the arrival in our world, what if it happened to them? And it's a ton of fun. It's a character-driven show with a lot of comedy. and hopefully people will like it. We'll see. I don't know, but
And
that's all of me.
when's that coming out, or is it any
It's
set yet?
it's called Armored Kingdom, and we are launching the IP in a bunch of different directions. We put out some comics. The comics weren't quite the tone I was looking for, so although they exist, I'm not like really pushing them that much. We've got a Roblox game coming out that's been really well received, but that's Roblox is kind of it's very much its own little um, uh, echo chamber. You don't hear much about Roblox outside of Roblox.
Yeah.
And then we're working on another video game very slowly. But so point being, animated series, God only knows. We haven't started. We've done some scratch records. We're settled on the scripts. We've got assets, but we haven't even really gone into full production. So who the heck knows? Who knows?
So how many scripts did you write for that?
Only 6, but
Okay.
we were going to do 8, then I cut it back, and hoping that we can hold some money to do a second season. So we'll see. I so firmly believe that we should be in toys. I actually created this thing a long time ago for Nickelodeon, and the idea was that I wanted to do a competitor to Skylanders, but it was going to be all focused on armor. So imagine if you got a more kid-centric version of Diablo, right? And the armor that you collect in the game is armor that you can collect in real life and put on the action figures that interface with the game, right?
Nice.
So
Yeah.
you would buy the action figure. You could get armor for the action figure in a variety of ways: subscription, blind bags, just buy them on the shelf, and then you could activate the armor that you have in the video game. Or if you beat like a certain raid in a video game, it would give you an individual code that would make you eligible to order armor from the company. So this armor couldn't be had just, of course, it'll be on eBay for a fortune, but you had to actually achieve the achievement in the game yourself in order to be to qualify to buy this armor. And then I had a whole integration. Long story short, I got a pitch to Nickelodeon, right, through Dan Milano. Dan was going to be a producer on the show. This is such a great Dan Milano story. It's so so I'm excited. I've got like a package of here's what the toys will look like. Here's what the show is. Here's the ongoing mythology. Here's what the video game will be. I am ready to go. I go to the meeting. I'm like confident, walk in, like I come correct, but it's like one of the few times a writer walks into a room and you're just praying to God you could possibly say the right thing, not knowing what they want to hear. But like, this is Nickelodeon. Skylanders is huge. I know video games. I know I've got the goods, right? I sit down. Dan never shows up. He just never shows up to the meeting. These people have no idea who I am, no idea why they're there, no idea why I'm there, any of my credit. Like, Dan was supposed to do everything. He's the producer. He's supposed to be like, hey, guys, here's Hugh. And he's not. Easily one of the most uncomfortable meetings I've ever had in my life. Like, and so I was just like, well, that was a lot of really good work, went down the drain. And so my wife, Lisa, is producing partners with Mila Kunis. And they've done fairly well. They keep selling projects. They've only gotten a couple things made, but they're very prolific producers. And they got into the tech world, and we met with these guys who had a cryptocurrency. They seeded our company. They didn't invest in our company. They just gave us a good amount of money, like a serious amount of money.
NFTs were a lot of money.
Yes. And then they poofed, like so many crypto things did. They don't exist anymore, and we've got essentially a fortune that seeded our company around this IP. Lisa walked in and said, hey, this is the team. This guy was on Robot Chicken. He bought the toys. He wrote for the show. He's done this. He's done that. My partner's Mila Kunis. We're going to have Ashton Kutcher as an advisor. We've got this comic company called Graphic India as partners. Give us some money. And they were like, just writing.
How much do you want?
Yeah. And so now we've got a company. Like, it's so impossible to get any money in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
To the point where I walked into Nickelodeon and gave them a franchise that could have launched $1 billion. And they were like, who the hell are you? Get out of here. And then
Well,
the
here's the
fifth room,
question. Did you ever find Dan?
oh yeah, I called him that afternoon, and he was like, hey buddy, what's going on? I'm like, what do you mean what's going on? He
You
just
just completely forgot.
completely, which is so Dan, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that happened. And he was a big shot there at the time. Like, we could have done that. Like,
Yeah.
Skylanders tanked, and I still think it's ripe to do. So I'm hoping that once our animated show comes out, all these things, we can finally get back into, full circle back into the arena that I think we should be in, which is 10-year-olds selling them toys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
That's
integrating
where all the
them.
money is.
Yeah. Nobody listens to me though. It's really bizarre. Like,
I listen to you, Hugh. If I had any power, I would give it all to you. I'd say, like, Hugh, just do what you want.
thanks, Mike. You might not realize it, but that actually does mean a lot to hear. Like, it means a lot. Like, there's one person on earth who'd be like, wait, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe. It's funny because we're talking about writing. We're supposed to be. Jeff Johns, one of the most successful writers of our generation. I'm friends with him, as you are as well.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things Jeff once said to me, he was, I've been very moderately successful. And Jeff was like, you're a great writer. And I'm like, shut up, dude. We're friends. He's like, no, Hugh, you have all the goods to be the most successful writer in town. What you do is you walk into a room and emotionally, with your words, convince everybody in the room that you don't know what you're doing and that nobody should listen to you and you're insecure, and you make them think they know more than you when you're not walking into any of these rooms ever where you don't know more than they do about storytelling, about pop culture, yada, yada. He was so right, and if you look at his success, it's obvious that he is a master at that. I mean, now his IMDb precedes him. He doesn't need to, but clearly that's where he got where he, is. And I really wish I had that ability. On Friday, I'm speaking to my 7th graders classes about my career. And that's going to be the main thing I tell them is have confidence, go into I'm telling 7th graders this, but it's like, go into a job interview acting, come correct, but like, act like you deserve the job,
Yeah.
Not that you are owed the job, but you deserve the job, that you earned the jobs.
Are you going to kind of change that when you go into your next meeting? Walk in confident?
I should hope so, because I've talked so much about it in the last few years, but I haven't had any meetings forever. I don't really talk to my agent anymore. I don't pursue virtually anything. The industry is contracted in such a tremendous way. Even people, I had all that success about 8 years ago. I just had a bunch of projects hit at the same time, and I was really hot, meeting with everybody. I had the show. We shot a pilot at the CW. The script was really well liked and blah, blah, blah. And, top managers in the business met with me, and they're like, I'm like, I want to go on staff. They're like, we can't get you staffed no matter who you are. It's the fact that the industry is contracting. There's certain diversity, seats that have to be filled. A lot of it is, networking. There's just not the seats for somebody like me. And obviously they're just making so many fewer movies, few movies.
Yeah.
And it was killing me. So, my wife was just like, get out of it, step back. And so I'm doing this animated thing, and I've been, teaching and just sort of not really pursuing meetings like that anymore.
Yeah. So what are you teaching at UCLA?
Screenwriting and TV writing.
Okay.
I try to stay with TV writing just because it's half the reading, in a semester. I'm not going to lie. But the program I teach right now is 3 quarters. I have a different group every quarter. The first quarter is they write a spec episode of a TV show. Got a bunch of people writing Poker Face this quarter. Okay. And then the next 2 quarters, it's spec pilots. So they create their own pilots. And it's really interesting. I learn a lot teaching it. And I've certainly learned a lot more discipline about how to outline and make sure my A plots and B plots, just everything's in order before I start. I've become a lot more organized because I was always a writer of passion and excitement and not well organized enough. But I've learned an incredible amount of discipline teaching it to myself while trying to teach it to my students.
Yes, that was one of my questions. Like, are you what they call a pantser or a plotter?
Ooh, what does that mean? Go by the seat of my pants?
Like a pantser is what I do. I just go, oh, here's an idea, and I sit down and I just go to town. Of course, I usually end up, kind of burning out after a little while. But
you mean you start writing pages right away?
Yeah, I'll sit down and so a plotter, like Buddy is a plotter. He sits down and does, A, B, C, D, the little outline, the bullet points and everything. He gets it all perfectly organized. And I'm like, that to me is boring.
Yeah, I hear. Yes. It's boring. And I'm a plotter, but I never have done enough in my life. When I wrote my novel in 2009, I had 2 huge projects crash at the same time. And a third project that wasn't a big deal, but it was really demoralizing and kind of insulting. And I was like, I am so sick of this. So I talked to my wife and I'm like, I'm not going to earn any money for the next 18 months. I'm going to write a novel. And she was like, okay. So I just, again, told my agent I'll call him in 18 months. Of course, it took 2.5 years instead of 18 months. But so I wrote a novel, and it was very much half plot and half pants. And I found my way during that. I figured out how to do it. I have a really good sense of how much I need plotted before I can start discovering things on the page. But that doesn't work in a television writer's room. It doesn't work at all. Nobody's going to sign off on trust me, not when there's a staff. So, the further I got into television writing, the more I just had to be so disciplined. And that pilot that we shot for the CW, oh my God, the process just kicked my ass. I just wasn't used to that. The one thing is, when you're writing pages, it's easier to hide bullshit. Can I curse here? Or should I not?
Yeah, we can leave it out later.
Like if you've got like a really bad piece of logic or a bad connection, why the heck would she do that? It's so much easier to massage it on pages than it is to like glare at it in an outline. And which is kind of a cheat because it's easier for the writer, but you're cheating yourself. And it's not like people who are reading it and evaluating you for a job or to buy something. It's not like they're not going to notice it,
Yeah.
But so that helped my process a lot. It was difficult. I had only written script my entire life. So it was very difficult to go from script to prose. And my book definitely suffers for it. I hired an editor, but you can tell that I'm not good with prose.
Now, when you sat down to do City Under the Moon, that's your book.
That's the book.
Did you just go, I want to write a werewolf novel and then go? Or were you okay, I want to write a werewolf novel that has this, this, and this?
I had already written it as a screenplay.
Okay, and so it was done first.
Yeah, I had almost sold it to a bunch of here's the intro. Okay, so years and years before, I had this idea: what if werewolves, an outbreak, like a disease of werewolves started in New York City? So one night there's a werewolf. What the hell? He bites 2 people. The next night there's 2, werewolves, and now they start biting 50 people. My idea was, okay, I obviously can't do this on a monthly basis, or I don't want to. So it's like the more full the moon is, the more wolfy they are. So like on a new moon, they would look like Lon Chaney and the Wolfman. And on a full moon, they'd be, hulking beasts.
Yeah.
So I had this idea, going way back, when I was a child, I had an intense fear of werewolves. Like you can't imagine. Like little, excitable, no doubt autistic, child abuse suffering Hugh lived in desperate fear of werewolves. So it always really fascinated me. My dad bought me the Spider-Man and the Amazing Spider-Man meets the Man-Wolf book and record, and I made him snap the record in front of me. So grew up loving werewolves. I had this idea of this werewolf outbreak, but I didn't know why. who was doing it and why. And I could not crack that for well over a year. I'm like, who would unleash an epidemic of werewolves and why? So anyway, so I'm at the movie with my friend Gary, you know Gary, and we're just talking about it because I had a list of titles up on my whiteboard and he had seen that it said City Under the Moon. And I'm like, well, here's what it is. And I don't know why this guy's oh, wait a second. And then I just had it. Here's why he's doing it. And so literally the next day I started outlining the script. It came together very well. I took it out, almost sold it to a bunch of places. A bunch of places had notes. One guy wanted to turn it into demons instead of werewolves, which is so bizarre because it's so steeped in werewolf mythology. Like, it's so fun and deep into it. So anyway, when I took this time off, I was like, that's my favorite story I've ever written. I'm going to turn it into a novel. So I started with the screenplay basically as an outline and developed a tremendous amount by the seat of my pants. Unbelievable. Like, if you were to read it, you wouldn't believe that some of the subplots just came in the moment. But yeah, so I guess the long answer to your question is roughly both. Not to sound arrogant, but I have so much experience. I don't sit in front of a blank cursor and wonder, can I finish? I don't get scared when I go off course and realize I've made a mistake. I'm used to failure, I understand what failure looks like, and I understand what success feels like, So I know if there's a problem in one of my stories. So, I've got that going for me. So, that's not the kind of advice I would give to a new writer.
But did you have like a page count? Like, I'm going to do 10 pages today, or just sit down and write?
Well, I had read Stephen King.
You actually had the script first, so you had the story down.
Exactly. Yeah. I had read that Stephen King tries to get 6 pages done a day, which seems low for him. But then if you start adding up like 60 pages in only 10 days, you're like, wait a second, that adds up. But then something interesting happened. So for my first draft, the final book is about 400 pages, right? For the first 3 months, I wrote about 50 pages. I'll answer this in a second. And then I started taking Adderall. And in the next 3 months, I wrote 350 pages. So, it was a weird time in my life. But I mean, I had tried to write a couple novels before I started that one, and I wasn't sure I was going to finish that one. I knew I had a much better advantage on this one than my previous novels because I liked the story better and I had the screenplay, but it took me well over halfway before I realized I was going to finish it. So I only have a literary agent for my scripts. And in fact, I went out to a bunch of book agents. And I'm not going to lie, I had really nice nepotism. I had people helping me at these literary agencies, but a couple passed. A couple, took forever to respond, never got back to me. And one, Hatchet, which is, probably the best place it would have gone to, they offered me an unbelievably low upfront fee, and said that, they were honest. Like, in the history of their company, there's been maybe 7 books that have ever earned more than this upfront fee. And Mike, I'm talking about 2 weeks on Robot Chicken. Like, I'm not even talking, I'm not talking like, oh, so low. I mean, I'm talking like grocery.
Low. Yeah.
And I'm like,
embarrassingly low.
I'm like, let me, even if I wasn't even going to stick it in my drawer, it's not worth that. So I just returned the rights. So at the time, this is 10 years ago, the rage was to publish on Amazon. And I took all these people got in touch with me and gave me this advice and blah, blah, blah. And so I published it myself. I hired an editor. I got a really beautiful cover. I did everything I needed to do. I got it out there. And I pulled every string I could to publicize it. But it's a really hard sell. At the time, everybody wanted werewolf hot guys with porn. It's very much divided between military, science, werewolf mythology. It delves deep into like government structure. Like I went so far into everything that would happen when this happened. Hold on one second. I'll come back to this one second. So, so I decided to publish it myself. I really wish that I had paid a little more attention. I should have published it as 3 books because it's long enough. And then what I found out is that to really get successful on Amazon, you have to launch a series. So you're constantly putting out new things that people can find. They can go back and find more. So I thought, okay, I'll write sequels. So later, like in 3 months later, I figured out what the sequel story would be. And I said, okay, guys, the sequel's coming next December.
3 years later.
Yeah. No. It's better than that. At the time, I had let me think for a second. She's born 2011. At the time, I had a 15-month-old child. Now that then 15-month-old child has finished her first novel, full-length novel, before I finished the one that I announced when she was 15 months old. Yeah. Because I just started having success back in screenwriting. I went back to that because it pays better. Okay, I can acknowledge proves a novelist is like being an actor. Yes, I agree. Yes. For a variety of reasons. Yes, exactly. And I like.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do that. That's what Stephen King does. But again, he's got the experience.
So hard. I mean, I have started and stopped. I can't even tell you how many novels that when the idea hits, I'm like, this is the greatest idea that has ever been conceived of by humankind.
Well, let me ask you, do you know what the ending is before you start?
Yes, I usually do. And it's always, I'll write 50 pages, no problem. And I get it all down. And then one day I'll be like, I'm not really sure what to do today. I'll just take a little break. And as soon as I do that, it's all over.
Yeah.
It is all over.
I do this and I tell my students, never stop your day's work when you don't know what comes next. I try to stop in the middle of a sentence, because I sit down and at least I've got some momentum before I hit what doesn't come next. Yeah, but I mean, you've got to, I think, listen, everybody does it all different ways. It's art. It's not science. But for me, the way to keep going is to do, the plotting. I call it pre-production, go to a whiteboard. And then I'll start with bullet points or a whiteboard. Then I'll write a beat sheet, which is basically an outline, but I'll import that outline into my script. So I'm just building the script on top of the outline, so I always can scan around and know what the low point's going to be. So if I just set up a dialogue hook, or if I know that I need a guy to get out of some jam, towards the end of the second act, and I have no idea how I would do that, I can insert some setup earlier on and know, so I color code everything so I know what I need, oh, this guy happens to be the world record holder at holding his breath. I have never and would never do that. But if I know I need to do that, I can set it up, That's second draft stuff, but I can maybe integrate it better than I would if I realized I needed it too late.
Yeah, so you do have quite an in-depth outline into the characters and the story before you sit down. See, that's my problem. That's where the pantsing comes in, because I'm like, I come up with an idea, I come up with some characters, and I'm like, okay, go. And then I get to a certain point, and I'm like, now I don't know what to do. Right. And if I stop and I sit and I think, that's gets tough. And then I'm like, oh, I'll come back to this. And that's where it all kind of falls apart.
Yeah, that's when you need an outline.
Yeah,
because at the very least, if you're stuck, you can jump ahead and start writing or just filling out the future.
Yeah.
If you're stuck on scene 17, go to 23 and see if you can pick it up from there.
Maybe I should take your class.
I would love it. There's a million things I want to start blurting out to you right now, but the last thing I want to do is start teaching you. That's a Seth move right there. Hey, Mike, sit down and let me teach you your job. My goals. There we go, man. One word a day.
Good one.
At least I should hope you could. But I mean, I know people
one word a day. That is a very good goal.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you handwrite the header, like City Under the Moon, period. That's a word, right? Hugh Sterbakov, 17. 18. Like, if that could take up a week, I'd be in really good shape.
Yeah. Now, do you ever have a problem with writer's block?
Oh yeah, for sure. Actually, no, for me, it's not writer's block, it's writer's insecurity. I've always got ideas, but I've been talked out of them so often that now I've lost confidence in how good they are. And then even still, when I think they're good, I so often get talked out of them. Or some of them I just like the City Under the Moon thing. Like some of them I just never figure out why the guy did it, or and some of them I just lose. I fall out of love with. Sometimes something gets made that might be too similar, but no, I've got thousands of ideas. It's just a matter of I'll tell myself they're all awful.
Now, do you write them all down? Do you have a file somewhere of just little snippets?
I've got a file of just ideas and titles, and then there's probably 25 stories that I have open notes on that I'm just like, I'll be driving and I'll think of an idea for that story and I'll pull over, or I'll just write it in my phone. The sequel to City Under the Moon. I'm still technically on a deadline, but I think everybody knows I've given up. One of my TV pilots that was a real big hit, and I sold it 3 times. I was going to turn it into a movie, and I started and just never finished because COVID and all that stuff. But I saw that's an open file. A couple other. I've got a horror movie. I've got 2 horror movies I really want to write. I've got a great idea for a comedy. I wouldn't want to spoil the comedy idea, but I want to do. I want to do a killer octopus movie, but like super intelligent octopus. So, the kids, the villain, the victims are on an island for, one of them's rich, and then they're having a party, and this octopus can like run around on land and like Predator hide in the environment, and
they can camouflage.
They talk about how smart octopuses are, so like the octopus kills one guy and fillets him the way people fillet octopuses. And then the octopus sees them calling on their cell phones for help. So the octopus takes all of their cell phones. And then when help shows up, the octopus like destroys the boat. And the octopus is fucking with them because it's so mad about what people do to octopuses. Mike, I see from your face you're not. I think I can ability.
This is something that I would love to watch.
Yes. And I think there's 10 of them in it. Like, at the end, of course, they kill the first octopus, but then, the camera goes below the water.
Oh, yeah. Got a whole family.
Eggs. I think octopuses could like multiply into like Cloverfield, and then there's a giant octopus, maybe 1,000 octopuses. Like, this could go everywhere, Mike. This could go to outer space.
So why haven't you done it?
Wow. Okay. I have 3 ideas lined up of what to write next, as if there's ever going to really be a next. But so this is one of the 3, and I tell them to Lisa, my wife, who's really my boss now, who knows the industry. There you go. Well, the Terrifier is, very similar.
We're behind you, Glenn. We're behind you.
Welcome to my life. So one of the ideas is the clear front runner. My kids really love it. It's the comedy I really don't want to talk about yet. And then these 2 horror movies, they're just not as excited about. But like, I also like one thing I'll do if I'm certain about an idea is I'll pitch it to people and very carefully study their faces, and try to see their initial reaction. And then where the cynicism kicks in, like they start telling me how nobody will buy it, or it's this or it's that. And then no matter what the outcome is, I don't write it.
See, you should. I mean, just
what I was thinking of doing too is writing a memoirs book starring my Superman 2 story, and all the others. So, and then all my Facebook rants and stories. So I've started putting that together because Lisa's convinced she can get that published.
I think you should do the octopus thing before you do the memoirs. And you can put the octopus thing in the memoirs.
Okay, sure. It's just like, will people laugh if okay, so imagine like something like go with me here. Something like Drew Barrymore in Scream, right? He's on the phone. He's in this house. There's a party. They've probably been doing drugs. They have found one of their friends outside on a spit roast, filleted as one would fillet a fish. Their boat has been destroyed. So they're they're all together freaking out, yelling at each other. And, you're at a low angle on the guy like this, looking up at him, right? And then you see in the rafters or whatever, the octopus move with its predator, invisible ability, and you're like, oh shit, it's there with them. It could kill them. So is that ridiculous, stupid, James Gunn, way over the top? Over his top. I'm not saying but the next level where it's just a stupid, or could that actually be scary? I don't know, Mike. And can I convince anyone that it could be scary? I don't know.
I think you can convince people it would be scary with the right, music and lighting and all that. It absolutely could be scary, but it could also be just stupid and funny, because why wouldn't you want it to be stupid and funny too?
Well, I would write it both ways personally. I like to write a lot of comedic banter. So I would write, it wouldn't be self-aware, but it would feel like Scream. Scarier than Buffy. So basically it would have all the charm and charisma of hopefully.
Yep. Could do that. Just make it over the top
as hell, dude. Graphics is the X-rated. I want to see a person filleted on a spit roast. I want to see the octopus using the utensils to cut him open, because I'll start on over the credits, some guy in a sushi restaurant, cutting apart an octopus. Yeah. So you see the brutality, because I'm a writer, guys. I know how to do that stuff and set up the themes. Exactly. So, and then it would get into, say what you will, like a Judd Apatow kind of movie, or no, Seth Rogen kind of movie. Banter and fun and comedy and fast talking fun kids. But the trick is that when they're in danger, nobody's joking, nobody's laughing.
Yeah.
That's when the jokes end. Because I can't stand when people are about to be killed by an octopus, and then they'll say something cocky as they're about to be killed. No, none of that shit. So, I would do it that way. Hopefully lure people in with charisma and then scare the shit out of them,
Yeah, so it goes from humorous to just absolutely gory and horrifying.
Right. But I said to myself, well, can you be scared of an octopus because you just don't go in the water? And I'm like, wait, hold on. One of the scariest movies of all time is Jaws, so and this octopus comes out of the water.
Yeah. I just survived out of the water for a while.
I just said that out loud, kind of seriously. That's the other thing that scares me is I'm sensitive in a terrible way for writers, and the threat that somebody would laugh at me is almost enough for me to never say this again. Laugh with me. But the thought that I would leave a room and somebody would say, that guy's a complete idiot, scares me to death. That keeps me up at night. So that's what I worry about.
Who would say that?
Almost any, but that's all what they want to say. Exactly. There you go. Man gets swallowed whole by the octopus. You can do anything. That's the other thing. The octopus, how big should the octopus be? I don't know. It can't be too ridiculously big, because you want it to be sleek and but you want it to show up in the rafters and stuff. I don't know. You got to figure that shit out.
Yeah, it should be bigger than a normal octopus, but not quite gigantic enough to
exactly
eat a whole person.
Right, but then do people even have a vision of how big an octopus is? They seem to be all different sizes, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
There's
they have the
every
ones
different size.
that attack
So it's
the.
almost, I mean, because then you got the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is a squid, but it's the, the size of a skyscraper. So it's like I could pretty much get people to believe anything. It's the matter of we'll do this, Mike. Let's dig deeper into this and make this happen. We can make this happen.
We can have you back on the show, and if you want, we can outline this entire thing and get it going. Give you some inspiration to get this thing done.
Yeah. When I was 25, I could have written this in 2 weeks, 1 week. But
and what's holding you back now? Is it just I'm like I don't want to do it, or you don't have enough time?
Well, first, exhaustion, man. I am always tired. Like, I had some health problems, but I think they're behind me. Dude, because of my phobias. No, I got paid one of the biggest paydays my entire career. I got paid to write a Weird Jaguar movie. It's called Reunion. It's for I don't know why they hired me. I mean, they hired me because they liked my sample, but it was a movie all about Black people, starring Black people, about Black culture. It was before this big, push. This is 2006, 2007. But yeah, a Weird Jaguar movie, Panther, because it was steeped in African culture, and these rich American Black family goes back to Africa and, reconnects with their roots. And of course, their roots are, going way back. And there's, a culture or a cult essentially that worships panthers, Black Panther kind of themes. And there's a were thing at the middle of it. So yeah, there's no idea that somebody won't buy or do. I guess I wish I could track that company down. I'll pitch them the octopus.
You should. I think you should definitely do it. Now was the Were Octopus idea? Is that just popped out of your head one day, just like boom, there?
No, I'm sure I watched some movie with an octopus in it and got inspired. They don't come from nowhere. It comes from me watching something and saying, oh, I could do this better, or daydreaming about, a genre or a character I like, and then saying, what if this happened to them? And that spins me off into my stories usually.
Now, would you think about doing the octopus as a comic, or just,
actually, yeah, I certainly would. Why not? Why the hell not? I would. Yeah. But I'm tired all the time. I'm supposed to be reading my child's novel and giving her notes, which should be the most important thing in the world to me. And I'm so slow with it because I'm always tired. And then teaching takes a ton out of me because you hold yourself accountable for making them talented writers or good writers. And it's such a burden because it's so upsetting when you can't make them improve. And then I just wrote this animated series. But this octopus, Mike, 1 year from today, if this octopus thing is not written, I should be ashamed of myself. But even this other thing first, this comedy that I'm being a douche about by not talking about, it's just, I can tell you off camera, but it's a really great, fun idea that's like so immersed in the pop culture right now and so saleable that I'm almost being irresponsible to my family's pocketbook by not writing it. But I've never been.
Why you gotta get it done. Is that just your own insecurities holding you back, or you be like, or just because you're tired?
Both. Precisely both. Insecurities mostly. I used to love writing so much, and then it just got shit on so many times by so many heartless people for so many unfair reasons.
That's Hollywood.
Huh?
That's Hollywood.
And it for so long, I first sold my first script in 2000. So, 20 years of it, brutal. Like I had one executive, the story in 30 seconds. I was part of a bake-off, which is when they bring a bunch of writers to pitch an idea that is. Horatio Sands, this is how long ago this was still heavy at the time, wanted to make a movie about a fat tennis player. So I was part of a bake-off. I really did what I thought was a very good job. They said, just don't make it about him needing to save the local YMCA or whatever. I did what I thought was a phenomenal. I'm so proud of it. And so my manager at the time sent it over, and he's like, well, they want to meet with you, but they want to tell you in advance not to get your hopes up about this project. I'm like, okay. So I go in, and this woman, remember in Batman when the woman was really put together on TV, and then the Joker started poisoning all the chemicals, and she came back on, and her hair was all messed up. And this woman looks like that. Like she's dreading talking to me. Like she didn't have the nerve to look in the mirror this morning. So I sit down in front of her. I'm like, what is it? Okay. She says to me, I don't know how to say this to you, and I've been trying to figure out how to say it. I'm like, okay. She goes, this is too smart for us. And I'm like, what? She goes, we're looking for something dumber than this. And I'm like, okay. I knew I was going to get hurt here, but I didn't expect that. Like, you did too good a job to get this job. And that was, but I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. So many, it's not a meritocracy. Things just yanked away, and strikes. Oh my God! Every time there's a strike, I was supposed to meet
the industry.
My dream, one of my favorite franchises of all time, right over you right now. I'm looking at a poster for A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I had gotten through the entire hierarchy of New Line Cinema with an idea for a Freddy sequel that would have been after Freddy versus Jason. So it would have been the latest. I was going to bring him back. This movie is designed to make him scary again. I had a spin-off bad guy that could spin off into her own horror franchise. Like, it was so awesome. Jeff Katz had gotten me in there. He loved it. And then the strike. And here's the thing. All during this development period, it was right when they were remaking everything. I must have said to them 3 times, listen, guys, if you sell it for a remake, don't forget me, even though we're immersed in this Robert Englund version. Please let me come in to pitch for that. They were like, we're not going to do that. Nobody wants to do that. This is the house that Freddie built. We would, and I again and again, I knew it was going to happen. So we fucking go on strike. And during the strike, they sell it for a remake. And somehow during the strike, they hire the writers. Anyway, what was it? I don't know what my point was, but yeah, there's that. There's like that. There's like, Hugh, you're going to sit down and smash your head into a brick wall again after what this industry did to you. Are you really going to do that, Hugh? And I'm like, I should, But then the other thing is,
you love writing.
Well, there's that. But that's the thing, is that's been taken away from me. That's what's so frustrating. But like in my career, the closer I've gotten to success, the worse I've felt every single time. While we were shooting my CW pilot, I could feel it slipping away from us. I could feel the mistakes, and I'm not blaming other people. I was part of the mistakes we were making, but I could feel it slipping away. Helen back, just over and over. It's like once you get it just slips away. Do I have any advice for writers breaking in? I don't know if you're serious, if you're joking because I've been so negative, but I'll try. Here's what I've got. Everything I've ever gotten has come from me showing it to a friend and them saying, let me show this to somebody. And it wasn't always super connected, super famous friends. I think you firmly believe need to be in LA. You need to be networking, meeting people, shaking hands as much as you possibly can, and then trying to get people to read your script and seeing if they'll become allies, passing it on or whatever. You need to be really careful and smart about what the script is. You need to be careful who you give it to, because a lot of people, you'll give them one script, excuse me, and they'll make a decision about you. And if they don't like it, you're not going to get their help again. And then the other key that I found is don't ask people. You know, I do know some really, really powerful people, and I feel like if I have to ask them, they would have asked on their own. You know what I mean? Like give them the chance to come forward and say, let me see that. And I'm not saying like never bring up like Mike and I, let's say Mike was a big time producer and we were just shooting the shit like this. I might have brought the octopus thing up. I'm like that. Never asking, hey, Mike, will you do something for me? Or what do you, never like that, just shooting the shit. But then Mike might say, Hugh, I want to pursue that. Or, hey, I know this producer, this director, whatever. Or he might not. And if he did, I'll follow it through. But my big success with Transylvania for the CW came from having new agents who came from another script that when my agent at the time read it, he dropped me. He was like, I don't want to represent this script or you, really. And then Dan showed it to his agent, who took me on, and we sold that script 3 times. And from that script, the CW wanted to meet with me. They wanted to work with me so bad, they basically gave me we sold an idea off of maybe not the greatest pitch in the world, so I'm not a great pitcher. And we, got the pilot shot. And for a minute there, I was the hottest shit in the world. So all of it, like my career exploded based off a script that one agency dropped, and my self-esteem, that was the script after I took the hiatus to write my novel. That was my first script back. And what happened there was Mila and Lisa had just started their first company and they needed material. So they asked me to do something for them. So they found a newspaper article to give to me, and they said, we want you to write this, because I wasn't sure what the hell would sell at that point, and I did. We pitched it, and nobody bought it, but then I wrote it, and the first agent dropped it, and then sold 3 times, and just it broke my career in a way that it was never going to happen prior to that or prior to the novel.
But Steve, even with your few failures, you've still gotten a lot farther than most people. You've been in dozens of pitch meetings. Yeah. You've met with high-powered executives. You've gotten to the top level of these companies. So you're doing. Pitching and selling, as we both know, is just absolutely ridiculous. It is so difficult.
Yeah, See, you sound like the therapist inside my head bouncing back and forth. I have had an extraordinary amount of success. I'm so proud of so many things I've written, a lot of which nobody's ever seen, but I pleased myself. There's a burgeoning industry in Australia. A couple of my students have been from Australia and breaking into that industry. What are some pitfalls? Okay, I can answer this. First of all, you're never going to pitch an idea that nobody's heard, that they haven't heard before. It doesn't exist. Killer Octopus, guarantee. As a matter of fact, when I did my CW pilot, so many writers that year who wanted to come on my staff or wanted to show run, so many professional writers told me they pitched that exact idea to this network, to that network, to this network. But the CW wanted to work with me because of that other script. So that's why they bought this. So you're selling yourself as much or way more so than your project. So you want to walk in there with confidence, with your shoulders back. You also want to start off on a personal note and a little bit of who you are. But before you start the story, tell them why it's important to you. Tell them the reason you need to be the person to tell this story, and you need to tell it. Like, okay, so my CW show was called Transylvania, and it was set in Transylvania. It was set during the Universal Monsters period, so late 1800s Transylvania. And like Gotham, you were just going to see all of the monsters come into being and eventually start fighting each other. But, like the pilot was introducing the Wolfman. And there was Castle Dracula in the background, but we didn't meet Dracula yet. Here was student, not Dr. Frankenstein, who, has this mysterious thing that he's doing on the side where he's like playing with dead bodies, that kind of stuff. It was all going to be. So anyway, I walked into this pitch meeting and said, when I was young on Sunday afternoons, my dad and I used to watch the Creature double feature on Channel 48 in Philadelphia. And I got really into the Universal monsters, and I've always cared about these projects. You know, these monsters, these stories are precious to me. I know them inside and out. I want to do them justice. We're never, you know, this is not going to be a comedy. You know, it's got a lot of banter, which they were familiar with my other project. They really wanted my voice. So I'm like, it'll be very funny and stuff. But again, I was saying that the octopus thing, you know, when a girl's being chased by the Wolfman, it is not funny. You know, I just made sure they understood, okay, you know, here's why I'm the guy. You know, here's why, trust me to do this. Here's why I'm the expert on the Universal monsters. Trust me when I'm in an interview and they say to me, you know, oh, are you guys going to do the Invisible Man versus the Wolfman from 1948? I'll know the answer. You know, I'm the guy. So point being, make it very personal. And then you want to pitch the idea and the characters. I like to pitch the story of the plot while I introduce the characters and their dynamics, and think about the characters in terms of conflict triangles and introduce them that way. So when you introduce one character and then you introduce the next one, here's their relationship to the first character, and here's how there's conflict there. And then you keep, it's a chain, you keep linking. And then the pitfall, don't talk too much. Don't talk over anybody, you know, get out of there. It should be tight, 10, 15 minutes, in my opinion. And then let them ask questions. And when they ask questions, get very enthusiastic. If they pitch ideas, very enthusiastic. In fact, if they pitch an idea that leads to a conversation, you want to know everything about the people you're in the meeting with. You want to Google them, ask all of your friends, you know what I mean? What can you tell me about this person? So let's say Laura gave an idea for, you know, what if the Invisible Man was not really invisible? And I'd be like, you know, that's a really good idea that Lauren had earlier. You know, say her name, get them involved, get them invested, make them just, you know, it's a psychological game as much as it's a pitch. So point being, finish talking as quickly as possible, get out of the way, answer questions, get them involved and enthusiastic, you know. That's really, I think that's the key to pitching. I highly recommend writing a script for yourself and trying to stick to it. I'm not an actor. I can't do that. My brain doesn't work that way. If I were able to do that, I'd be much better at it. And then I like to make pitch decks, which are basically slideshows. I'm really into that.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely recommend a pitch deck, because that gives them something to look at, which is always great, because, you know, it is a visual medium, and they're like, okay, if I have this, I can see the characters, I know what the backgrounds look like and everything. That puts it right in their head, which is great.
Yeah, and you know, don't make the pitch decks too like esoteric. Like I did one pitch deck where I used a young John Belushi for the photo. You know, I in Transylvania, for the photo of one character, I used a young Al Pacino. Everybody looks at that and goes, that's a young Al Pacino. We're never going to get Al Pacino for this show. But they're going to be like, oh, I know what you're going for. I know young Al Pacino, and I know who this character is, you know. So that's really helpful when you do that kind of stuff.
Pitching is no fun. It's no fun at all.
And it has nothing to do with writing. That's what's frustrating. Like, I love writing. I've learned writing. I've studied writing. None of these things apply to pitching, you know. And
are you teaching the kids in your class how to pitch, or giving them pointers and everything?
Yeah, Weekgate is top to bottom Transylvania. I tell them from the part I just told you, where how I got the meeting with the CW, you know, how I came up with the idea for Transylvania, you know, the work that my agents and I did to find the right idea, to find the right producers. And then I go all the way through the pitching process. I show them this pitch deck. I basically pitch it to them and explain to them how I sold it to the CW, first to the CBS studios, then to CW. I've never had an anxiety attack, but I did one time. I never drink caffeine, and I got a Frappuccino at Starbucks before this pitch. Oh my God, Mike, you have no idea. I could see my heart beating in my eyes while I was talking. It was like a 15-minute pitch, and I did it in like 3.5 flat. Yet another way. So yeah, listen, it's very anxiety inducing. I always wished I had a partner. I never found a good, solid writing partner who could, think my way and put up with me. I sort of have one now. We don't write together, but he's, I would say, my creative partner. He's a successful writer on his own. He's got his own partner. They write Christmas movies, but I've relied on him so much over the years as a sounding board that when we did this animated series, I got him a job. So he's on the payroll now to help me, essentially. So I write all the scripts, but he and I break the stories together and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't drink coffee and I don't do alcohol. I'm the opposite of Stephen King. I just, self-loathing and
self-loathing writer.
Yeah, self-loathing and regret are my gasoline. And disappointment and fear, tremendous amount of fear. Had I not, I was professionally writing for about 9 years before I was like, this is kicking my ass too bad. I'm going to stop and write my novel. And then I only came back because Mila and Lisa dragged me back into it. And the first script back, my agent dropped me, so I absolutely could have exited it there and never lived the rest of my life thinking I wasn't good enough and beating myself up. And what was all that education? And then every time I saw something on TV, I'd be like, well, how did that get made? So I had this second wind with a whole crap ton of success, but also writing my novel, which I'm more proud of than anything in the world. And when I die, if somebody says, who the hell was he? Was he a good writer? And my kids hand that person my novel, I'm fine with that. I'm proud of it. So having those victories saved me from a very dark old age. I would be teaching, and every night going to bed, my brain would screaming at me. Well, those who can't do teach, even though that it's not true. It's a terrible thing to say. It undervalues teachers. And also when I was coming up through the master's program at UCLA, I had Oscar-winning Oscar-winning writers teach me. It's absurd. But nevertheless, that would be banging around in my head. And it'd be a really dark existence, but I had to, I had to find redemption by being proud of myself,
Yep.
And then little things along the way that certain people have said to me. On Transylvania, one of my producing partners was a writer that I have an unbelievable amount of respect for. I worship him. And long before we became partners on this. And when I gave him my first draft, everybody, I know they were all so nervous because they didn't know me very well and I didn't pitch very well. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And even the CW was like, what the hell are we going to get here when I went off to write that script? And I was kind of like, I really had a lot of confidence in it, but you never know because sometimes the things you like the best are the things people don't like. So I was sort of like, here it is. And then that writer that I admire called me and was so effusive with his, compliments. And right when we got off the phone, something else had come up and we were beyond that he liked it now, but we were just about to hang up and he just burst out. He said, Hugh, you're a hell of a writer. And I was like, oh my fucking God, outside of my family, that's still the most important thing anyone's ever said to me, because you can hear that from the head of a studio, but they're not a writer. They don't know what good writing is. And I know that this guy knows good writing. And to hear from him meant just everything to me. So, the 24-year career now, it's 24 years since I saw my first script. And that one little heartbeat of a moment that he threw in right before we got off the phone on top of, the unbelievable success I'd been having at that time. But just that one sentence blew everything away,
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
Yep. And speaking of that, how about we I gotta ask you that one question, even though we
I'm
already
so
answered
sorry.
it.
I'm going on too much, aren't I, Mike? I'm
Oh
sorry.
no, that's okay. What was the question? Oh, what's one piece of advice you wish you'd received earlier in your career?
It's kind of what I just said, is to take a moment to take pride in what you've done. You know, like Mike, if you wrote 50 pages of script and didn't finish, you can spend the rest of your life sort of like, I didn't finish that, it's a failure. But did you ever take a minute to look at that 50 pages and say, man, I wrote 50 pages, and even if it didn't turn out well, I did that and I like it and I'm proud of it. And what I had to learn was to take a moment to be proud of myself and to not let those moments go, even when the darkest times come. And it's funny because one of the very first scripts I ever wrote was about a guy who was getting edged out of the industry, and his mentor, who would become a teacher, and it was called Writer's Room. It was about a bunch of writers. I showed that script to my wife, and it made her fall in love with me. But in that script, there's a scene. I'm so new at the time when I wrote that. It was like my third script I'd ever written, so I didn't know what I was doing. But I wrote a scene where this guy finished the script, and he was all nervous because he had to turn it into the studio head that afternoon. And somebody says to him, "Hey, man, breathe for a minute and appreciate that you just wrote that and that you like it, and then it's complete and it's finished." And it's funny because over the years, when other writers have read it, I've so often had people come up and talk to me, not necessarily compliment me, but want to talk to me about that line. And 24 years later, I realized I was saying it to myself and I needed to hear it. So yeah, that's the one thing that I wish someone had. I don't know that I could have learned it sooner, though. I don't know that anybody could have said that to me, or I could have internalized it from them. I think I had to live the life,
Yeah.
The near miss and unfulfilled career that I had, where things just whisked away in unexpected ways. Sometimes at the very embryo stage, sometimes you get all the way, you shoot a pilot that nobody will ever see, and I was everywhere in between. And, at the end of the day, I got to live with that. When I meet somebody and I say I'm a writer and they say, "What have you written?" I got to live with the answer that nothing you ever have heard of,
Okay, you got to pull out that portfolio and show them.
Yeah. And maybe play less video games.
Yeah, well, no, that helps. It keeps the brain working.
I've played a disturbing amount of video games in my life. Just a fraction of a percent less, and I could have written several more novels.
Hugh, I would love to get you back on here to go even more in depth with the thoughts.
Anytime. There's no one on earth I enjoy talking to more than you.
Oh, thank you.
There may be people I enjoy talking with equally to you, but you are
no one
truly
more,
and that's not hyperbole.
Oh, well, thanks, Hugh. That is right back at you, because you are very, very entertaining.
Thank you. I only survived my Robot Chicken experience because of you. Because looking over at you and making eye contact to tell me, no, you're not crazy, Hugh. They are.
Oh, yeah.
It's
not you.
It saved me. No, anytime.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you on again, Hugh. We'd love to hear all these stories.
Sure.
Just I do. I think they're great. Some good ones. All right, gonna throw you in the green room, and we'll talk to you some other time.
Rock the outro, man. Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that was our good buddy Hugh. He definitely has some good stories. So, listen to his advice. Get in there, be prepared. and do your writing. And we will see you next Tuesday.